Good afternoon. This is Lunch with the League for the League of Women Voters. And my name is Melanie Smith-Guillaume. I'd like to welcome everybody here today. We are welcoming today Willow Wetherall for Lunch with the League. And I just want to make a few little comments before we start. If you would put your comments or questions in the chat, so that we can monitor them and Willow can answer them. Keep yourself on mute, and that way we won't have any interruptions. Thank you all again for coming, and I want to just introduce Willow as from downtown South Bend, and she's going to talk. She's the executive director, and she's going to share the vision of downtown South Bend behind the plan, the new plan that's coming out or has come out. And she has lots of experience with economic and community development to bring positive changes to blighted areas and uplift underrepresented places and people. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Willow with another thank you for coming to speak to us today, and go.
Well, thank you, Melanie, for the invitation. We were chatting when I first got on the Zoom. It seems like maybe the last time I presented was 2017-ish. Anyways, it's been a while and it's really great to be back. I've got there's a lot of familiar faces on the Zoom today. And so it's just wonderful to be here with you and to share one of the things that I'm most passionate about. And I am coming to you live from Cleveland, where I am attending an International Downtown Association conference. So the keynote is happening right now, but you are getting your very own keynote about downtown South Bend. And I've got my Downtowny t-shirt on. And we're gonna have a great conversation today. So I know that some of you have been part of the downtown master planning process. Beth, I know you've been at the engagement sessions. Melanie, I think I've seen you and Alfred there. I know my mom, Emily, has been. So some of the material that I'm presenting today may be familiar or even very familiar. But one of the things that I know to be true is that when you're working on plans this big, this visionary, you need multiple times to take in the information, sit with it, explore it further. So if you're seeing it for the first time or for the third or fourth time, the plan continues to be adjusted little by little as people continue to give feedback. So there's a lot of material to cover, but I'm really excited. We're gonna dive in, and I'll go through a whole bunch of different slides that outline the vision and kind of the design principles behind the vision. And then we'll have Q&A, and you can ask me anything about the plan or downtown or any top of mind questions that you have. All right, so give me just a second to get the presentation back up. Okay, so here we go. All right, everybody can everybody see the slide? Is it full screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just and folks, just so that you know, when I'm in this presenter mode, I can't see anybody anymore, but Pam has assured me and Melanie has assured me they'll pipe up if I need to stop or slow down, or if anybody has a burning question. All right, so we are working through Downtown South Bend's 2045 plan, and many of the things that are outlined that I'm going to share with you today are very doable within a 5 to 10 year time frame. But the city did frame this initial vision as a 20-year vision. So a lot of people, when we think about, revitalizing a community or living in a city that is, this lovable, iconic, livable, walkable community, We often think of places that have really fantastic weather, places like San Diego or Boulder that has both beautiful weather and, really majestic landscapes. But there are plenty of places around the world that are fantastic places to live that don't have perfect weather. And South Bend is one of those places. So this is our little community along the banks of the St. Joseph River, and there are so many people investing in this community and showing pride of place and loving it and rebuilding it in really important ways. So at Downtown South Bend, we're a nonprofit organization and we're structured as a public-private partnership with the city of South Bend. So we are aligned with our revitalization goals. And our vision at our organization is that downtown South Bend is a vital, vibrant, and irreplaceable Midwest city center that's both a beacon and a boon to all of South Bend and the surrounding region. And our mission is really simple, and that is to enhance and advance the cultural and economic heart of our city. And that mission will tie into this downtown plan and why it's important. So we're going to have an overview. Why do this plan? Why now? Well, there's $1 billion of new investment coming into downtown, and the projects. This next slide. This shows some of the highlighted projects that are already in progress. That represent some of that $1 billion of investment. And you can see they're scattered within this yellow outline. So with that much investment coming in, it was really time to articulate a plan. And I think one of the most important parts of why do a plan is because it codifies the values of a community and where our community wants that investment to go and how how they want to see the downtown shaped into the future. So the yellow line outlines the area that was the focus for the downtown plan. And some folks have asked, well, what about, more of the east side of the river where East Bank Village is? And the reason that area is not included is because it already has a comprehensive plan. And so those two things will be married and integrated, but the major portion on the west side of the river has not had a comprehensive plan. And almost the whole ring around the downtown, all of the neighborhoods, they've already received their comprehensive plans. So it's sort of like a donut in the middle, the heart of our city that didn't have an articulated vision and plan. So in terms of the planning process, it's been about an 18-month process. It started in February of 2024. And we started with a kickoff and a sort of a visionary talk to set the stage for the whole process by a woman named Casey Steinbacher. She was really instrumental in a transformative project in Durham, North Carolina called American Tobacco. And it was the adaptive reuse of a Lucky Strike tobacco plant. And it's become just, a wildly successful project, mixed use development with, residential units and shops. And it mirrors very much some of the infrastructure that we have with the Studebaker buildings and the vision for the Renaissance District. But one of the things that Casey said that was so impactful in this whole project is she really challenged our community to think of downtown as the city's living room. And I love framing this whole conversation like that, because if you have somebody new who's coming over to your house, one of the first things that they're doing when they come in is they're looking around. They're seeing what books you have on the shelf and what artwork you might have and what's the furniture like and what's the aesthetic and do they feel comfortable and, are you somebody that they can see, becoming better friends with? And people are doing the same thing with our downtown, whether they, have lived here for a long time and are, coming downtown. Consciously or subconsciously, they're asking themselves questions. Do I feel comfortable here? Do I feel safe here? Is this place interesting? Is it beautiful? Is it a place that I want to dwell longer, spend more time, bring more people down to? And the same is true when visitors are coming or considering moving to South Bend. They come to the heart of our city and they're testing the waters and seeing if it's a place that they want to be. So the downtown, our investments, our design choices, how we engage in the revitalization does say a lot about who we are and what we value. And here are some of in that the initial engagement process. Here are some of the city living rooms that people said that they loved, and there were many more examples. These were just a few, but Nashville, Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids is a favorite of mine. Cincinnati is a favorite of mine. But spaces in Fort Wayne and Denver and Greenville, South Carolina, spaces in Washington, D.C. And I'm curious at the end of this talk to hear from you what cities you visited that have quote unquote great downtown living rooms. And, to get a sense from you of like, what are some of those components that make it memorable to you? And a place that you would want to spend more time or return to. So there's another reason. I just talked a little bit about the identity, and downtown as a cultural heart of our city. My daughter Amelia just walked in. Meals, you can wave hi if you want, but she's here at the conference with me. For those of you who don't know, Amelia has been working at downtown South Bend as an intern for 3 years and is just a hugely important part of the team. So she'll be sitting close by, maybe piping in with her own expertise. So the other reason, though, to really focus on downtown, so it's a cultural heart of our city, but it's also the economic heart and one of the a very important economic engine for the city of South Bend. And I'm going to show you this data visualization. It's not the best. I'm going to do my best to describe what it is, but it's a data visualization that changed my life. And what this is showing, this is showing the assessed value per acre in the city of South Bend. And what we're getting at here is that density matters. Where you have the most value per acre, there are two places where you can see those purple spires rising far and above anything else we're seeing in the city. And there are two main places that are creating this sort of, creating a massive net positive when it comes to the kind of tax revenue that's generated in our city, and that's Eddy Street Commons and downtown South Bend. And as far as high as our purple spires are going, I want to see them go even higher, because in our downtown, we have surface parking lots, places where there's, sort of missing components to the downtown, where if there were, productive buildings, residential units, businesses, that economic engine gets cranked up even higher. So this was the first time in my professional career where I saw an economic engine represented in a way that was so clear to me to see why downtown matters and why density matters. And here's just another visualization. So this data visualization, on the top of the line, the black spires that are rising up, these are places in our city that are creating a net positive in terms of tax revenue that they generate relative to the amount of money that it costs to maintain their infrastructure. So that's the roads, the water and sewer, sidewalks, all of those, the basic pieces of infrastructure that you sort of make a community work. And you can see, once again, Eddy Street Commons in downtown South Bend really rising above with that net positive. And many other places in our community, are in the red, so to speak. So they cost more to maintain than they generate in tax revenue. And it's one of the reasons that across the city, we see things like, potholes in the streets, broken sidewalks. We don't necessarily have enough resources to, take care of all the public assets we have. The pool at Potawatomi Park is, being demolished currently because of all of the deferred maintenance costs. And so that public pool had to be closed down. And part of what drives my work is I want to see that economic engine cranked up so that we have the kind of resources to provide quality of life, not just in downtown, but across the city. And so one of the things that I hope to leave you with is that, downtown is a giver, not a taker. And when we talk about the kind of investments in downtown and the return it has for the whole community, the return isn't just for downtown. The return, we see that tax base get spread across the city. And based on the condition of many of our neighborhoods, we need more resources to really uplift South Bend so that everyone has the opportunity to live, in a safe, beautiful neighborhood that really supports, you know, this supports our community to, be healthy and thriving. All right, off my economic engine soapbox. So, um, just running through the process quickly, 18 months, we had many different listening sessions, brought together hundreds of people to give their feedback and talk about what they'd like to see. And then after that spring came a summer design week where consultants came in and they presented a variety of different ideas to the community and then in real time solicited feedback. And the designers were, as people were giving feedback, drawing new iterations of the vision so that by the end of the week, again, hundreds of people had contributed to, adjusting the vision and adjusting plans based on what they wanted to see. And so here are some of the things that have come out of that process in terms of what did we hear from all of this, the engagement sessions with the community. So here are eight development principles that really are driving forward the vision. The number one principle, absolute top of the list that people want to see is activate the riverfront. Activate the riverfront, activate the riverfront, activate the riverfront. We've seen the success of Howard Park and, how the beautiful design of that space, um, has been really transformative for the east side of the river. And it's time to turn our attention to the west side of the river and see how can we open up more public space along the river, make the river more accessible, and really take advantage of the wonderful asset that we have running right through the middle of our city. Some of the other development principles include expand housing options, and I'm going to talk about some of the areas that are really the focus areas for like new downtown neighborhoods. Anchor downtown with jobs and people, create a safe and inclusive place for everyone, create vibrant public places, build comfortable and accessible connections, grow and support local businesses, and embrace sustainable practices. So you'll see these principles woven through the concepts that are being presented for the master plan. All right, let's get into it. What I'm going to do in the course of the presentation is we're going to go through sort of a walking tour through our community, and we're going to start on the north side up by Leaper Park, and then head into the center of downtown, and then sort of pop a little bit over to the west and the southern edge of downtown. So starting with downtown north, the major projects that are already at play for this area would include Beacon's Patient Tower, which construction is well underway. Notre Dame's Tech and Talent Innovation District, and that is anchored with their acquisition of the Tribune building. And then we also have Madison Lifestyle District, which everything I've heard is still on target but has not broken ground yet. And so one of the areas that we see an opportunity to add more residential housing is the neighborhood that is sort of on the other side of Beacon Hospital. This would be in close proximity, again, to the hospital and to tech jobs in Notre Dame's new Tech and Talent Innovation District. So jumping over to Lafayette and Colfax, where Notre Dame has made this initial acquisition of the Tribune building. The Tribune building is sort of just the start. Their full vision for the district, I think, is about would encompass several blocks. So from Lafayette over to Main Street, and I think probably pushing west towards William as well. So one of the ideas and visions for the future of Lafayette is one, to do infill. So we are on Lafayette Street looking north, and the Tribune building is on our right-hand side. You see a surface parking lot on the opposite side. That's a former parking lot for when the visitors and employees of the South Bend Tribune. So one of the visions is infill on the left-hand side in that surface parking lot, and a lot of changes to the streetscape, which would make it a much more sort of which allow for more flexible use in that area. So Lafayette would still remain an important throughway for traffic, for vehicle traffic, but there would be some enhancements that would allow it to easily be closed for street festivals. And so you can see there's a widening of the sidewalks. There's obviously like new trees planted. And there's some other design elements sort of integrated into the vision here that again would allow more flexible use. Now, as we move into the heart of downtown, this is where I'm going to spend the bulk of our time together, is in downtown central. And I'm going to focus on concepts for a town square, enhancements to Michigan Street, Century Center, Jefferson Boulevard realignment, and the big idea for the future, which is a signature riverfront park. And some of you may have heard about the riverfront park concept. So the town square, the goal, again, creating this active public square that functions as the living room for downtown and for the city of South Bend. And so here's a rendering of, what an active town square could look like. This is that same location today. So this is former College Football Hall of Fame in the Gridiron. And this is the area of downtown which functions currently as a type of de facto town square. And it's an area that Downtown South Bend as an organization does a lot of programming on the Gridiron for First Fridays, for, the holiday, like the tree lighting ceremony, just trying to activate this space and use it sort of as a center of gravity for programming to draw people downtown. So here is one concept for that same area. This is keeping the same shape of the former College Football Hall of Fame, but adding a large porch, excuse me, onto the front of it, and really activating the space as, a restaurant, and then, something with an outdoor patio seating. And then the rest of the area of the Gridiron is a mix of green space. We've got a fountain, and you'll notice these little sort of white kind of rectangles. These are little retail shops, and I'll show you another image of them in just a minute, and why why we think it could be a really important strategy as sort of an incremental next step to create more vibrancy and retail options downtown. So here's a different vision, really changing the shape of the building. This is the concept here is more of a like a market hall where there's lots of different food vendors inside that have sort of smaller kiosks. And again, you see all those little red patio umbrellas. So there's outdoor seating where you can, go inside, get your food, come outside and enjoy it. And again, a mix of sort of softscape and hardscape in that town square area for flexible public programming. Okay. Staying in the heart of downtown with the design principle to grow and support local businesses, I want to show you, this is a picture of what they're called 3-season pop-up chalets. This is a picture from Muskegon, Michigan, and they've had great success basically using little garden sheds that have basic heating and cooling elements, but they're painted beautifully. They're positioned close to one another. And they're a great solution for places in our downtown where we have surface parking lots. And this is a way that is a low cost way to, before we have all of the resources to completely build out and sort of put back in place buildings that were torn down. This can be a great strategy. And downtown South Bend, we receive inquiries every week for businesses that want to move downtown. But one of the pain points for us is that the available retail space doesn't match what people are looking for. What we have available is either in really, really bad shape and needs a lot of improvement. It's been neglected for a long time. The building owner could be out of state or out of country and really, not have a strong vested interest in the health of our community, or the spaces are really large. And what we're seeing that people want in terms of retail space, they want a smaller footprint, and retail can be really challenging right now. So oftentimes where people are finding success is smaller footprint with a combined online presence for their business. So this we think is a nice strategy to, start in the right direction, meet the need that we're seeing, also doing that incremental infill that we think is so important for Michigan Street. I love I hope I'm going to be able to do this slide justice, because um, I love what the data tells us. This is not necessarily a happy picture, but it's the truth. It's the truth of where we're at in terms of retail today. And what the little red lines show on this map, they're showing where we have current restaurants and retail in our downtown. And on the west side of the river, there is only a half of a block, one half of a block. That is it. That is all we have of retail that is facing each other on both sides of the street. That's a problem, because when you talk about a walkable, wanderable downtown, the way that our retail is currently distributed, it's very hard to have that experience of easily going from one place to the next. There's long stretches in between, or there's just a very disjointed feeling when you're walking downtown. So part of the vision for retail for the future is a real emphasis on Michigan Street, again, to put those pieces back in place to have retail on both sides right in the heart of downtown. The other thing that we noticed on Michigan Street is that 100 block of South Michigan, where we do have retail facing each other, on the west side of the street, where Pegs, Bruno's, Pegs, Linden Grill, Frankie's just moved in on that side of the street. Those are those retail spaces on the ground floor of the Layton parking garage. What we noticed is, even though there's this wonderful collection of independently owned businesses, the exterior facade is sort of it's a very uniform look. So all of the canopies are the same. There's not a lot of signage. So an easy kind of next step is to really address the streetscape there and help, through facade enhancements, bring out the unique identity of these businesses. And we think that it's going to help really distinguish the businesses as well. The other thing is, if you've walked downtown recently, especially when it's patio season, the trees end up being right in the middle of the walkway. So that's another thing that we need to address in terms of walkability, but very fixable. I'm going to spend one slide on parking, then we're going to move on. But if anybody ever wants to geek out with me on parking, I would love to dive in deeper. But I will just say this: the most recent parking analysis that was done for this study showed that we have over 14,000 parking spaces on the west side of the river. These are public garages, public lots, private lots, and on-street parking. So it's a whole combination. And at the peak of utilization on 10 a.m., only 46% of parking downtown is occupied. We know that when some people say, like, there's not enough parking, we need more parking, we do know that there's a few areas of sort of pain points where there is very, very high utilization, and people may feel at times like there's not enough parking. But what we need to do is work on a comprehensive strategy in partnership with privately owned lots to free up parking where we need it, and be able to consolidate some parking so that we can infill more of these surface parking lots, because they're just, again, we have plenty of parking and the surface lots are doing very, very little for our tax base. All right, we're moving on from parking. Century Center, Jefferson Boulevard, and I can see the time, so I'm going to start moving even faster. Apologies. Century Center and Jefferson Boulevard, another sort of big vision for downtown South Bend. There's a lot of conversations about what to do with our main convention center. Part of the concept is really to modernize some of the space. I think I'm not going to have time to go into all of the details for the vision for the Century Center, so I'll just leave you with, a couple visuals. But I think there's some great concepts, again, to make the space more appealing for today's uses of what people are seeking in a convention space, and to activate this corner of MLK and Jefferson for the future. But I think one of the most transformative infrastructure projects that is kind of connected to this vision for the Century Center is the realignment of Jefferson Boulevard. And so you can see in this aerial view, as we're looking west on Jefferson, you can see where it used to connect right through the Century Center parking lot. Right now, the street curves south and makes that S curve and then dumps you onto Wayne Street. But the idea is to reconnect this main artery. And you can see in this image, not only is the street reconnected, but there's an emphasis in this downtown plan for reconnected trails, especially on both sides of the riverfront. So you can see restored pedestrian boulevard along sort of in the right-hand side going underneath Jefferson Bridge. That's a whole area along that west bank where the trail system is completely disjointed and the reconnection needs to happen. All right, big idea for the future. There's a little bit that ended up being a little controversial. I'm happy to talk at the end if anybody has some questions about the signature riverfront park. So activate the riverfront again was like the number one thing that people wanted to see in the downtown plan. This is an image of a really beautiful riverfront development project in Cincinnati. And this is the west side of the river today. And you can see the Century Center and, large pavilion. This is one vision for activating the west side of the river. This one focuses all of the sort of building footprint for the Century Center remains intact. The major focus is just to the north of the Century Center. You can see where the words downtown South Bend are written. This becomes sort of what we would call like sort of a bump out at the street level, which would allow you sort of to go out to that area and look over. Right now, that area is it's pure park. So there is a park, but it's like you kind of come down this ramp. It's a hidden, not very accessible or well utilized. So this is, excuse me, one iteration. Give me just a sec to take a sip of water. So we're creating a street level plaza and viewing area, and we're spending a lot of emphasis reconnecting the trail system with a boulevard, with a boardwalk that's going along the edge of the Century Center. All right, a little bit more radical vision for the signature riverfront park involves removing part of the Century Center. And you can see, I showed you some of the renderings for where the College Football Hall of Fame is. That second vision for a type of market hall with, food vendors. You can see sort of on the west is that kind of new vision for College Football Hall of Fame. And you have part of the Century Center removed so that when you're on Washington Street, Washington, as you head east, brings you right into this new riverfront park. I think is a really beautiful, bold vision. There's certainly arose some concerns about where the art museum would go, and I'm happy to talk about that at the end of the talk, because the art museum absolutely must remain central and in the heart of downtown South Bend, and I know the city is absolutely committed to that vision as well. So here are just some quick renderings of Century Center today, and what if part of the facility was removed, sort of opening up with glass as it looks onto the new riverfront park, what it could look like. And here's another rendering of the park. All right, downtown South. We're just gonna move a little quickly because I want to make sure we've got enough time. But I am going to focus on Riverfront West. Riverfront West, let's see. Let's orient ourselves. This is the area to the far left in this picture. You see the Crow building. You can see on the other side of the river, Howard Park. And there's a series of commercial buildings. These were built as, single-use commercial spaces surrounded by a sea of parking lot. And when we're thinking about the kind of development that we want to see on the west side of the river, we're really looking at infill that is mixed use. So the idea here is basically to create like another downtown neighborhood by adding a lot of residential units to that area, still with a mix of commercial spaces and then new green spaces as well. But I think it's a much more effective use of the space, again, with the focus on density and adding more residential, more housing units downtown. We're gonna move. I don't think I have enough time to do justice to Western Ave, but I'm happy to talk about it, in the Q&A or in the future. But there is development plans are already in the works for the site of the public housing that included the Monroe Circle townhomes, which have already been taken down, Rabbi Schulman Tower. And the idea for this part of Western Ave transformation is to retain all of the affordable units that previously existed on this parcel. It's a net 9-acre parcel, but to add basically to create a mixed income neighborhood. So instead of concentrating people in poverty, you are creating a healthy mixed income neighborhood, again, retaining the same number of affordable units, but adding workforce housing and some market rate units as well. Some of you guys have heard Union Station was acquired by the city of South Bend, and talks are in the works with Amtrak to restore train service to Union Station. Another important part of the downtown plan is to really consider the historic character of downtown South Bend. When I talk about the vision, our vision statement, we envision downtown South Bend as a vital, vibrant, irreplaceable city center, Midwest city center. The reason we emphasize that irreplaceable is because for many, many years we treated assets in downtown as though they were easily replaceable, and we removed so many beautiful assets. And today we are still struggling with the legacy of urban renewal. So we want to give special protection and emphasis to preserve the remaining historic buildings that we do have. And I am happy to say the city of South Bend has officially moved forward with the purchase of the State Theater. That's an incredibly important asset on Michigan Street. And they have mapped out, I think I have, so this is a quick map. I'll circle back to the last slide. But they have mapped out all of the historic assets in the downtown footprint. And each one sort of gets a bit more of emphasis on what the plan is for that building. And this is another great sort of nascent success story, but Center City Place is a building that has been vacant for many, many years. It's on the 200 block of South Michigan Street. It was recently acquired by the same people that own Danny Made Food Hall and have brought new life to that space. And excuse me, under the facade of Center City Place, on the right-hand side, you see the Grand Leader. That's the original name of that building. And you can see how unbelievably beautiful it was. So we're testing right now to see the condition of the facade underneath. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it's in good condition. But that'll be job number one, is removing that facade and really jumpstarting the transformation of this beautiful historic building. We're just going to move ahead. There's emphasis on the plan in terms of gateways into downtown. This one is on Lafayette near Union Station. We know that these places currently are very uncomfortable places to walk and to be. There needs to be a lot of streetscape improvements, a lot of lighting to really make them places that people want to be. But there's also a lot of development happening in this area. So on the right side of this rendering, those apartment buildings are going up as we speak. So there's new residential housing already under construction right across the street from the ballpark. So development is coming to this area. We need to make sure we've got a plan to make the necessary streetscape improvements. So once people move in, they're comfortable walking and biking and being in that area. This is the 500 block of South Michigan Street. looking north. And again, I just want to emphasize some great nascent success stories. On the right side of this image, those 2 brick buildings are owned by Historic Properties. That's Charity Stowe and Rachel Mosspan. And they're doing a great job with the initial stabilization of those properties. And they've bought the vacant lot in between the 2 buildings as well. So those buildings, again, they're under great local ownership with people who have the expertise and care deeply about historic buildings. So I'm very excited about the future of this area. And with that, even though I haven't gotten to every single thing, I'm just going to end with one of my favorite stories. And forgive me if you've already heard this story before, but this is the Lafayette building on Lafayette. It's across from the City County building. It's one of the most beautiful buildings in downtown South Bend. It's been vacant for quite a while. It's one of the most beautiful buildings because of the glass atrium on the inside of the building. And you can see on the right-hand side a little sort of snapshot of that.
Mm.
There's this beautiful courtyard inside, and natural light just comes flooding into the building. Well, in 2013, again, this building was vacant. There's no electricity, but I was part of a group of people really enthusiastically embracing city revitalization. And we did a series of rooftop parties in vacant buildings. And the Lafayette was one of them. So after we were done having wine and cookies on the roof, somebody had the bright idea to go into the basement. And people whipped out their cell phone flashlights. I was very hesitant. I didn't think this was a great idea, but it was peer pressure, and I went along with it. Down in the basement, I heard this tiny little mewing sound. And I followed it and found this little bag of bones kitten, which I rescued. And this is Yeti, who is an absolute love and just wonderful part of our family. And I just use that to say, sometimes when you're curious about a place and investing in it and loving it, that place ends up loving you back in very unexpected ways. And that is the case for Yeti, who is named after the Lafayette building. So if you want to access the full set of slides and the downtown plans, there's a QR code. You can hold your phone up to the screen, or the together.southbendin.gov will take you to the city's website with more information about the plan. I can always go back to that slide in a minute. And here's my contact information if any of you have follow-up questions for me. The person in the leprechaun suit is my youngest daughter, Aislinn, who humored me to help us out at the St. Patrick's Day Parade. So I have a tendency to get those around me involved in this work. But I really, really appreciate your time and letting me share.
Well, thank you so much for coming. And there's so many things to look at and so many things to talk about. I'd like to ask Pam to go through the chat and ask me questions that she sees there. I can't access them on my iPad today.
First of all, I think you need to come back a second time because I don't think we can cover it all at one time. And I'm serious about that.
I would be happy to. And I agree, Pam. It's like almost like each area needs time to dive in and kind of pull apart. Why does this work?
Right.
Is this a good idea?
By the time I can figure out the street you're on, you're already buried me. And NIMBY, I'll get to your raised hand if you can wait just a second wherever you are. I want to go through. Can I go through the chats first, NIMBY?
If you've got time, we've got 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
First question, what is the best, most effective way to bring people in to assure an even wider swath of our community is truly engaged? That planners will benefit from hearing from in order to have other perspectives and also to help prevent downstream naysaying that their input was not asked.
Well, I have some thoughts on best practice around this. And all I can say, I'll say 2 things, maybe 3. I still think it's effective if this is not a complete answer, Beth, to this, like, how do you get widespread engagement? What I think in terms of best practice really should happen, which I would love to see happen, and DTSB stands ready if we get the green light and support from the city, I would love to go to every neighborhood association meeting, any civic group, anybody that would have me. I will happily go and share the presentation and get the feedback and collect it and bring it, bring it back to the city. I think that's, on a personal level, my goal for the engagement around the city plan, I wanted at least 1,000 people to contribute ideas. I wanted at least one in every 100 people in our city to feel like their fingerprints were on the plan for our downtown. We're not quite there yet. So, without full support to kind of like say, go ahead, DTSB, like, go out and communicate more about this plan and get more feedback, that's a little bit challenging. So my other two recommendations, never underestimate, the letters that you can send to the city, or having organizations sign on to a letter with their ideas that are signed by multiple people. They really do make a difference. Because I do think there's an opportunity for much deeper engagement on the plan for many, many reasons. But I mean, one, it's the downtown living room. It's the center of the city. So you want people to feel buy-in and that their ideas are represented and that this is a place that is for them. But two, this is a huge plan. And once we get outside of, the first 2 to 5 years of kind of excitement and momentum around the plan, you need the kind of buy-in and engagement that takes this plan through the next 10, 15, 20 years. And if we don't do the hard work up front on community engagement, it's really, really hard to sustain the kind of focus and attention that gets the implementation done, because a plan is only as good as what gets implemented. And we learned that from this engagement process when we brought people from East Bank Village to the engagement sessions. And the very first engagement session, it was like an hour and 15 minutes. And we spent the first 45 minutes kind of in a therapy session where all those folks had to get it off their chest. Like, hey, years ago, you brought us in for the last visioning session, and you didn't incorporate our ideas. And we're still over here in the East Bank, and stuff has gotten built that was not aligned with the neighborhood plan, or you haven't done the things that we said were the most important. And that was I will just say, as head of this nonprofit organization, that was a big lesson learned for me to see, when you have people come to the table, you invite them and you ask them to give of their time. Oops, I just saw low bandwidth. You really have to honor that you are incorporating that feedback, and that you're sustaining those relationships for the long haul to do the heavy lift of implementation. That's a very long-winded question. I
Okay.
feel you, Beth. I feel you. It's
was
hugely important. Okay, sorry.
It was a long question, and so it was a long answer. I have a question. It's very short, and that is in the first part of the South Bend view that you showed, where it was the football stadium or that.
College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. What was inside the building? You showed the outside and all the stuff that was out there, but what was going to be used in the actual building?
In the first kind of basic one,
right.
restaurant.
A restaurant.
Yeah.
We have a
There
lot
could
of
be, Pam,
restaurants.
there could be a lot of different uses.
Okay.
And some of these are broad strokes of like, what is an initial way that we could reactivate, activate the
Okay.
space. The thing that's unique about College Football Hall of Fame is that, number one, it's privately owned property. So all of these ideas, we have to work with the
Yeah.
private owner, and either they need to agree to kind of sell it back to the city or to a new developer, or they need to agree to the vision and take the lead. And the current owner, I think, has some different visions for what the property could be.
Oh, okay.
So it's early stage and broad strokes, but the majority of square footage is actually under the gridiron for that building. There's that's where the majority of the museum space was. It's a very unique space to figure out what to do with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And Nimby, I'm going to take yours now because the next question is a million questions. So Nimby, let me look at yours.
You're
you're going to do it. Yeah.
I tried to put it in the chat, Pam, and I wasn't able to. So Thank
Okay.
you. And this has just been wonderful, Willow. Thank you so much. And when you're talking about in the past having invited people to the table and then possibly the feedback that you got wasn't as positive as maybe it might have been. I wonder if in this next plan, I'm so sorry that I'm not going to be alive in 2045 to see this. So thanks for a preview today. But are you guys in touch at all with George Garner, who okay, good.
Yes,
Because
Civil
his book,
Heritage
and
Center.
he's been a guest here, I believe. He has a book, Placing History and African American Landmark Tour of South Bend. That's
Yes,
excellent. And it talks about the west side of the river and how so much of what was there was systematically
yes,
removed,
yes,
basically because it was owned by Black people, not
yep,
being political, but that's just the truth of the matter. And so
yep.
I'm glad to know that George is plugged into this next step in
Yeah,
some
I
way.
actually, I mean, I work, our offices are in the Robertson building, which is on that African American Heritage Tour.
Hmm.
And I showed you that building, the Lafayette building is another, just one of many important parts of that history. So
Hmm.
yeah, the legacy of redlining is, you know, it's created huge wealth disparities in our community. And I could come back for a whole nother a whole nother
Yeah, for
talk on
that too.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another talk. Just remember that. Because we'll ask you all the different things you could talk to us about next time. Okay, here are the bunch of questions. These are all from Sue Kissam. Please explain paying $5,000 people to move here. We need a good middle class jobs to return to South Bend. That's number one.
Okay. I'm just if I can, I'm just going to read, I'm quickly reading
Oh,
them
you're
in the
reading
chat
as
so I
well.
could get a full scope of the
I
questions.
know some point you were helping homeless women. How are things going with the homeless in downtown, women in particular? Those bridge lights left on all night are bad for migrating birds and fish using the fish ladder. Supposedly, South Bend is supposed to be green. Aaron promised they would be temporary for the 150-year celebration, and they have been harming nature ever since. Why don't they turn them off at 9 p.m.? They don't need to be on all night. And number four, how do you make parking garages more safe? We need street parking for seniors, handicaps that can't do well in garages. Removing street parking is shutting out seniors, handicapped, and mothers with children in tow. Getting rid of parking shuts out people from the rest of the city coming to downtown. And what is the status of getting rid of the art museum for Century Center? Some of those questions I think you addressed a little bit, but
A little, just quick, and these, I can see the time, and these questions deserve longer answers. The status of getting rid of the art museum, there is no getting rid of the art museum. That is not what is happening. The only thing that would happen would be relocating the art museum. And no, I cannot emphasize that enough. Yes, I understand what the rendering showed for the vision for this signature park. Um, in it, in an ideal world, it would have shown where the new home is for the art museum. And so that was a, you know, it doesn't, but there's no getting rid of the art museum. One of the things that I do think that I would love to see as an adjustment to, or an addition to those 8 kind of guiding principles for the plan, is the express articulation and commitment to arts and culture as a key economic driver in this, you know, vision for the future of downtown. And there's sort of uh, parallel to the master plan, there is a regional arts and cultural plan that's being developed. And I think it would be amiss if we didn't see greater integration there. And I think had that been um, a more prominent articulated guiding principle, we would have seen some rendering that included the new home for the art museum. And so, but there's no getting rid of it. It is, it's a core asset downtown, and the arts have to be at the center, you know, of the future of downtown. Bridge left on all night. I think they're left on until 11 or midnight. I get that that is longer than 9 PM, but just to clarify, they're definitely not left on all night. I didn't know that 9 PM is kind of the time frame that maybe that they should be shut off. So I don't have enough answers. I don't have enough answers quite on that. Yes, the issue of homelessness and homeless women in particular. Um, there's a small number, how do I frame it? The composition of the chronically homeless population changes over time, but I was particularly concerned with a small handful of women, chronically homeless women with severe mental illness who had been offered housing and had rejected that housing because they didn't feel, even though they rise to like they're top of the list in terms of eligibility, they didn't feel safe in the new permanent housing supportive units that were being offered to them. And so two of the women that were sort of top of mind for me have since been housed through the Motels for Now program. And so I have seen, several years ago and like pre-COVID and like since COVID and what we've been able to do in terms of new resources and strategies around working with the chronically homeless, I have seen some of the women that I had like the greatest concerns about get into safe housing that works for them. And again, I could come back and do a whole nother talk about homelessness. Please explain the 5K to people who move here. I'm not super involved in the Make My Move incentive program. I know they're common across the country. And I understand that with remote work, people have a lot of places where they can choose to live. And so lots of cities are trying to incentivize, increase in their population by encouraging people to move to their community. I know I've got 2 open positions right now at DTSB. One is a director of marketing, and I've interviewed 5 people from outside of the state, and all of them have asked, "Hey, do you have do you have programs to help with moving costs?" And as a small nonprofit, I was thinking, well, I don't really have it in my budget, but we do have Make My Move. I do have a tool that I can use as a local employer, to bring talent to our community.
Okay.
Garages is a whole nother.
I'm going to stop you now because I'm going to ask if there are lots more stuff on the chats. It's now 1 o'clock. Does anybody have a burning question that they need to ask before we go? Because we will have Willow come back. And I don't know, we'll talk with Willow about what's another aspect of whatever this is. But whatever we're talking about. But if anybody has a really burning question, you can ask that now. Otherwise, we'll thank her for her time.
Yeah.
Missing her keynote speaker.
Okay.
So whoever has a question, raise your hand. Oh, here's a question. Oh no, it's a thank you.
Yes. I want to add my thanks too. I can't see the chat here, so that Pam was looking at, but maybe we could give you the questions, Willow, and or you can see them right now, and you can come back or send us a letter of, that's too much to ask. That's too much.
I'm trying to figure out a way to sort of capture the questions that I didn't have a chance to answer, but I'm not quite sure how to do that. But I would love to come back. There's some great questions that I don't think have been
Willow
addressed.
Willow, click the 3 dots in the upper corner of the chat.
Let me see if I open it up like that. No, that's not.
And then there's a little pop-up that says save chat.
Yeah, I was looking for that, but I
Yeah,
don't.
it's here, but we also have and we also we also record this, so, um, it should, yeah,
It's weird
you
because
don't
I know what you mean, Beth, but I don't see
have the three dots up there?
I don't see the 3 dots. If somebody has the 3 dots and you can save the
I
chat for
do,
me,
I
you
will.
can send it to me, and then I will do my best to answer
I
questions.
do, and I will.
Awesome. Thanks, Pam.
I have just saved it. Okay.
Okay,
And so everybody, thank you
yes,
for all of your interest. Oh, and I'll let Melanie take over again. And thank you, Willow.
yes. How many ways can we say thank you? Merci bien, muchas gracias. Thank you for coming, and we know that you will be back to follow up with a lot of these things. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for taking the
anytime.
time.
I'm so happy. Thank you for the great questions and letting me share my passion for downtown and our community. I
Okay.
appreciate all of you.
And
Wonderful.
sorry you missed your keynote speaker.
No, this was a pleasure to be on here with you. This is my community, and I love the chance to, have this conversation together.
Yeah, and even those of us who don't live in South Bend, like me, you talk about it being our living room. Well, it sure is an accessory to our living room.
Yeah.
South Bend is.
Yeah, and so you need to hear from us too. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that next time.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Have a
all.
wonderful day. It looks beautiful
Yes.
outside. Thanks again.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.